In the same way that not having enough content could be a problem, also too much content or a lot of content does get overwhelming.
About social platforms and how you think about them as a marketer.
I think each platform serves its role. Each platform, depending on what it is that you're trying to communicate, who it is that you're trying to communicate to, can really help you dial up your messaging.
What is one thing that you wish you had known earlier in your career?
Learn how to be a master collaborator as soon as you can. When all the things come together and they're playing well, you can really tap into an emotion. And those are the lasting effects that you have with the brand and the community that you're building.
Hello, and welcome to SA Tech Marketers, where I uncover the journeys of marketers who are absolutely thriving in South Africa and beyond in the hope of helping you do the same. I'm Kirsty Lang, a senior content writer working remotely in Cape Town for a tech company called Buffer. And with me today is a master of operations, real-time content, and cross-functional collaboration. If you've ever wondered what it takes to run social media for a brand like Coca-Cola across multiple markets, this one is for you. But before we get into that, a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Global Talent Company. Whether you're a South African marketer looking to land your dream remote job or a company looking to hire world-class South African talent, definitely check out theglobaltalent.co. The link to their website is in the show notes. So now with me today is Chabi Setsubi. She is the social media content and operations lead at VML, managing Coca-Cola's social presence across South Africa and the East and Central African markets. Her role spans content planning, community management, live event coverage, crisis management, and reporting. I'm exhausted just saying all that. Chabi, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to dig into your work and your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy. That was definitely a mouthful. It sounds like a lot.
That was amazing. No, that's a testament to you, clearly. I think people should aspire to have the kind of podcast intro that is a mouthful, right?
Thank you. Like I do like the I do like the intro. I didn't realize it was that much. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I went deep in your LinkedIn and did some research there. And yeah, no, it's a great intro. Okay, so Chabi, before I get carried away, let's start at the beginning. I would love to know what first sparked your interest in marketing and how you kind of ended up moving into the social media space.
Awesome stuff. Well, I'm a storyteller at heart. So I think for me, coming into marketing, that was pretty much the mindset and the vantage point that got me into it. I do say that sometimes I do have a bit of an untraditional entry into the, digital marketing space, because I first started out working in the marketing department and publicity department for a book publishing company. And when you're just fresh out of varsity and you're like one of the youngest people on the team, social media was just really relegated to the side. It was just one of those nice to haves.
Well. Yeah, you understand
exactly.
it. Back then, it was like Facebook for me. I was like, that's how I'm giving away my age. But they were like, just handle Facebook, Kirsty.
Exactly. And literally, it was right at the beginning days of Facebook. We hadn't quite figured out a business model that worked, especially that was niche to the industry. So that was one of the things that I was tasked with doing, just figuring out how do we leverage our Facebook presence to, put a spotlight on our authors and the books that we put out. So that was really quite the beginning of my career. And then I shifted into publishing. I shifted into production, and that basically gave me a different view of the content creation process as social media management process, because coming into the production company that I was working for, we had a lot of assets, but we didn't know what to do with them. And even that was a completely different, discipline that I had to learn. How do we strategically place these assets? How do we talk about each of our different shows and our films in a way that kind of makes sense? So I quite the beginnings of my career was just self-taught, trying to get the grip of things. And then I figured that this is something that I really enjoy doing because it encompasses all my interests, all my skill sets, and a bit of the experience had accumulated at that point in time. So find my way into an advertising agency, which was called Cerebra at the time. And that's really where I started getting into community management across different sectors, different parts of the editorial process, which I really just found exciting. I found it a fruitful challenge because I got to challenge myself in many different ways. Like I said, there's different parts of this entire social media, digital marketing space. And I think community management is really where I found my sweet spot.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I have so many things that I'm just excited about digging into. I also want to spotlight something that you said, because I don't think anyone has framed it in this way, where you mentioned you started working for a production company and you had all of these assets. So like social media managers listening to this must be like, oh my goodness, like all of these videos, like how did you not like absolutely thrive? But that is, I mean, it's a wonderful problem to have, but also like it is so complicated, like figuring out strategically what is best. I mean, I'm kind of giving away my latest obsession here, but I was watching some Netflix videos on Instagram or TikTok or one of them from K-pop Demon Hunters. And I was like, that must be the best job ever to work for Netflix, because you have so much stuff, right? That you can share. But I mean, you can't just slap everything everywhere. Sorry, I'm going off on tangents here because...
No worries, no. That's a really great point that you make, because like in the same way that not having enough content could be a problem, also too much content or a lot of content does get overwhelming. So you kind of need to figure out like what is the best use for all of this. And figuring that out was a very nice challenge for me, because I was like, okay, what does the strategic element look like? What do we sound like as a brand, and how do we speak to people? So that for me was definitely like a great learning curve. It was a great experience to have, because then I got to think about things from many different perspectives when it comes to, how we show up on social media.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for turning my nonsensical ramble into a learning moment. I appreciate you for handling that segue so beautifully. Another segue. Speaking of being strategic on social, I want to talk to you about social platforms and how you think about them as a marketer. Kind of which one is your favorite, but which one is your favorite from a marketing lens? I'd love to know if there's like a difference there.
No, there definitely is a bit of a difference. And I always struggle with this question because like I think each platform serves its role. Each platform, depending on what it is that you're trying to communicate, who it is that you're trying to communicate to, can really like help you dial up your messaging. And I think just like most people, my latest obsession right now is TikTok, just because that algorithm is primed.
So good.
It is primed to like, figure you out, and it learns you just as much as you're learning it.
It's actually terrifying.
And it is. But then I think it poses an interesting challenging opportunity for most brands. It's like, how do you shop in a space where you are in a constant state of, cross communication, if you will, or it's a constant conversation. You're not the only person putting out messaging out there. You're competing with your competitors in your sector, but you're also competing with all the available content on the on the
you're
platform.
Competing with entertainers. Like, how do you grab attention from people who do it? Yeah, TikTok is a whole different beast.
So it's a whole different beast, and it poses a really interesting challenge. But I do think that those are one of the platforms that I do like looking into, particularly from a brand lens. Like, what does it look like when you putting out content? Because you can't approach it similarly to how you would other platforms where you've got like very specific ad units, like you've got the opportunity to leverage trending audio and very untraditional trending audio. Like you would have seen the, J2 holiday, that audio is a trend. There's no way you could have planned for that.
Who would have predicted that? Oh my goodness. For anyone listening, what is it, Chabi, if you haven't heard that before? It's just like an announcer saying something about Jet2 holiday specials.
Exactly. It would have been an audio that was pulled from like a radio ad or like some sort of a voice ad that had a voiceover, and it always starts with, for an airline, and it always starts with the, I think it is an airline. Yes, it would. Jet2 makes sense for an airline or some sort of travel packaging company.
Yeah. In South Africa, we don't know these things.
Exactly. But that perfectly illustrates the point that, I mean, even when you don't know where it originates from, like as soon as you hear the audio, you understand like how it's being used on TikTok. But yes, it is for an airline. It was probably used as an ad at some point, and now it's the audio for every holiday fail or any type of fail that you can find on TikTok. And it's so entertaining. It's so much fun. Like it's so interesting to see how people have used it slightly differently. Now all of a sudden J2 has this trending audio that they never could have anticipated that we couldn't have worked for. And a lot of Yeah, and a lot of the times the first impulse for brand managers, and it is a bit of a, how can I say, in a necessary thing to consider, like what is the impact on this for my brand. And a lot of the times it's like, oh, take it down, how do we stop this, how do we stop this from
Right.
exiting our
And you
very
don't.
well manicured page and our very contained ways of communication and strategy planning. And sometimes you don't. And like, this is a rare opportunity where you kind of like, okay, how do we rise to the occasion? How do we build on something like this? Because you're getting an impressive amount of reach, an impressive amount of awareness, even if it's not directly linked to like a final product and a purchasing moment. But
that
like,
level of brand awareness you cannot buy. I mean, you and I don't
you
even
can't
know,
purchase
like
it.
I know Jet2 Holidays now, and it's a product that I have. I don't know their logo. I don't even know if they are gay. I don't know if they're an airline, so maybe not that great brand awareness, but you can't buy that.
But it's a starting point, yes. Like a lot of brands spend their entire marketing budgets to get that level of virality. And like I said, it's an opportunity that they can leverage on and that they can build on from there, just because it's like, okay, now that we have our name and brand awareness out there, let's do an educational piece now about who we are really. So there's ways of approaching it, and, you know, and taking that moment of, you know, just authentic, you know, brand visibility and making and making that turn from relevance into, you know, a real moment of connection with your audience. So that for me is the magic behind TikTok. It's like, rather work within the realms and the parameters that you have on the platform as opposed to trying to retroactively fitting it into a brand strategy. Obviously, a brand strategy is absolutely necessary because you need to know the moments that are necessary, that are applicable to use a brand, because not every opportunity is an opportunity for everyone. And not every trending moment is a moment that you need to capture and leverage. But what I want to demonstrate is the fact that like both of these things, if you get them right and you position yourself for, you know, agility as well as a robust, you know, roadmap for your brand, you really get to find this beautiful sweet spot, this middle spot, where amazing things like this can happen.
Oh, I love that. I could talk about TikTok and trends and the weird psychology behind it all day. Well, let's just kind of pull on that thread a little bit. In terms of kind of staying on top of trends, I often feel like I'm chasing my tail a little bit when I'm thinking about, you know, my own content as a creator or, you know, social content for brands. How do you stay on top of them? How do you kind of ride that wave while it's at its peak rather than, you know, getting something, you know, live 10 days later after you've potentially gotten all of these brand approvals that you may have to go through?
Absolutely.
How do you balance that?
I mean, like there's a lot of different moving parts that kind of have to work in unison to somewhat get you to that. And I think the magic is in finding a process that works, that kind of makes it feel natural and almost makes it feel like it just happened organically, you know? So my approach has always been around fully understanding your brand, fully understanding the market that you're operating in, understanding your audience and their platform behaviors, and then finding the golden thread that ties all of that together. And that for me is a very strong brand voice and a brand point of view. Because once you know who you are as a brand, what you sound like and who you're speaking to, then you know the moments that are applicable to you and that, you know, can really help you dial into those cultural moments, you know. And I find that is the key to creating content at the speed of culture. Like, you need to have a clear understanding of what you sound like and why and what's your motivating factor behind certain trends, that then you can find those opportunities and you instantly know that this particular trend is something that works well for me and my brand, and I already understand why, and you can motivate for it. And you can also, I think there's also different types of opportunities you can find. Sometimes when I'm doing social listening, the thing that I like to ask myself is this a moment for creation or is this a moment for connection? And what that means for me is, do I go out and put together a post where there's, you know, a creative and there's copy, and then we turn that into like a fully crafted moment? Or is this an opportunity where I just enter the conversation and just have that moment of connection with my community? Both of those help you build your brand slightly differently, different ways of doing it. But ultimately, you want to be able to do a brand building exercise like that. And that's what each trending moment should feel like.
I love that so much, that way of framing it, because there's nothing worse and more kind of tone deaf when you see a brand jumping on a trend. I saw one the other day about, I can't even remember who it was. It was, they had done some sort of spoof about, the couple at the Coldplay concert.
Yes.
And I was like, is this the kind of thing you want to associate with your brand? Like some brands, it makes sense. Some it doesn't. I mean, I wouldn't have touched that with a 10-foot pole. But you do you, friends.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
And there are a lot of brands that have that have developed that brand tone, and they've got equity in spaces like that. Like a brand like Nando's, for example, I think we know them and understand them as that the cheeky chicken, very tongue-in-cheek, very, opinionated. But they had to be consistent for a very long time. I don't think we take into context how much work had to go into developing that persona, and also being brave enough to right at the beginning to be involved in certain conversations. Because it's like, why would a chicken brand be involved in these type of conversations? And then eventually, you start to teach your community, and people start to expect you to show up in these places. So whenever something happens,
they want to know how you're going to approach it.
They want to know how you're going to react. Exactly, because your voice is so clear in that space, and you engage and communicate with your audience so well in that space that they come to expect you to show up in particular ways. So I do think that's how you can win when it comes to opportunities. You don't always get it right at the beginning, but it's always important to take calculated and consistent risks.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So much of what you said is so clippable. I'm just so excited about all of the clips that are going to come out of this. It's so great.
I love that.
Could be a trending audio. We never know. No, I'm sure it won't be.
You never know.
That would be amazing. What was I going to say now? Oh, yeah. So your point about Nando's and just the kind of how they were just pioneering stuff. They were, when you think about it, everyone talks about the Duolingo owl. No one talks about the unhinged Nando's chicken, right?
Exactly.
Y'all, we've been doing unhinged social in South Africa. Right? Anyway, I've just that triggered that for me. That's really, really cool.
No, absolutely. And brands like Savanna as well have done a really great way of communicating, and they've got and even then they've got a very clear brand tone, and that brand tone has helped them shape their narrative. There's helped them shape their positioning within the industry and in their particular sector, and even the fact that they're the brand that as the comedy brand, they are linked with these with this particular niche. I think that's a great way to demonstrate how just having a clear voice, having a clear connection with your community is in fact a brand building exercise. Strong brands are built on strong community management.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And you've segued perfectly into my next question. So let's talk about community management, because I worked in a company that was building community management software a couple of years back. And in the kind of phase, I was deep in community land. It was community is not social. And now we're seeing, not social. When I say not social, I mean not on social media. Our Facebook audience is not our community. Only our Slack is our community, or only this private group is our community. And it was quite an exclusionary, is that a word? I don't know. Exclusive approach. But the way you approach community is completely different. So I'd love to hear about kind of how you think about community management and what benefit it has in marketing.
Absolutely. I think just by virtue of social media and the way that it works, you as a brand don't have an option to ignore your community. And I think that is exactly why community management is important, because as much as you may not be saying anything about your brand, you may not be putting any type of messaging up out there, people are talking about you, and you kind of want people to talk about you, that just, and I think that just is an indicative of a healthy brand, regardless of how the sentiment is. You're basically putting out messaging and people are responding to that. And for me, community management is really this sweet spot where you get to put out content, but then you also get to speak to people about that content. That's where you get to learn about how people are receiving your brand or the product or the service that you're offering, and all of those learnings are happening in real time. You don't have to wait until the end of the quarter when you've seen your sales that there was dissatisfaction when it comes to this. When people are unhappy, they will definitely, that's the first point of contact is
especially South African people.
Exactly. is your social media platforms. So for me, community managers are your first responders. Like they're the people who are on the ground. They're the people that are engaging with your community. They're the people that get to see the learnings on the go. And the best times or the best kind of reports or the best kind of strategies always take that into consideration, not just what you're putting out and like the metrics behind that. It's also what the messaging that you're receiving, because word of mouth is quite strong, and word of mouth does happen on social as well. So for me, that's really just from a brand building point of view, that's really the purpose and the benefit of community management. But then with the changes in different platforms and the services that they offer now, you do have an opportunity to do what I like to call social commerce. And it's not necessarily a new concept. It's and I think with a lot of different global markets, it's very entrenched in those markets, and it's still developing and still growing in South Africa. But social commerce for me is where quite literally social media meets a commercial output. Like you'll see there's ad units on Instagram and Facebook for shoppable posts, and I think that's a really great opportunity. It's for conversion. It's like once you have people's attention, once they're on your page, how do we translate that into a sale, which is a priority and an objective for most brands. At the end of the day, conversion and reach are a priority. So you kind of want to reduce the barrier or the friction between someone making the decision to follow your brand and then making the decision to make a purchase from there on. And I think that's a great opportunity that we have to dial up content at that point as well, especially for brands that are like very sales driven, very sales centric, and they never it's always difficult to make the argument of, hey, do a post on this, and then it's like, how is that going to ladder up into a sale?
And
how
then
is that
what?
going to impact my bottom line? And I think that's where the opportunity is there, turning brand love into sales through social commerce.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of kind of the ROI of cultivating a community.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about your community, what do you think of? Is it like quite a nebulous thing? Is it everyone who buys the products and everyone who follows on social? Like, how do you define who's a community member and who's not? If we're talking Coca-Cola, for example.
For example, yeah. For me, I like to take a diplomatic approach when it comes to this. I think anyone who interacts with your page, anyone who interacts with your content, anyone who speaks about your brand I would consider as part of your community, because you are either engaging or you're either part of the conversation that is about the brand. So you do have situations where people will speak about the brand but not necessarily tag the brand or engage with your page or follow your page, but they are part of the conversation or the narrative that is about your brand in the world of social. So what does that mean for you as a brand? Where is the opportunity for you to leverage that as the brand? There's very interesting campaigns that I've been a part of in the past, where we've taken the positive engagement that happens from an earned point of view, where maybe somebody isn't necessarily looking out to tag the brand, but they're talking favorably about the brand. How do you use that as a moment of connection and as a moment of engagement? Like, if somebody's saying, hey, it's a really hot day, or a Coca-Cola would be great right now. How do I use that as a moment for me to build that connection or to build the trust or to further bed down the authenticity for me as a brand? Those are the moments that I look out for to build the brand, because it may not turn out into help me build a social objective at the end of the day, but it helps build the experience with the brand. And I think for me, that is valuable in its own way, because you want to manage the reputation for your brand online above and beyond the content that sits on your own platform. You want to manage the narrative and tell the story of your brand within the entire ecosystem of social.
And with a brand like Coca-Cola, that is a huge job. I don't even know. How does that work, like logistically? Like you talked about kind of having community managers as your first responders. I mean, that obviously means, they're responding to all the comments you get on your platforms and DMs, but that's also social listening, which is something you mentioned earlier. Do they also handle that?
Yeah, so we've got, we fortunately on our team, we've got a team of data analysts and we've got the team of community managers. And what I'd like to do, I like to do a layered approach when it comes to social listening. We've got qualitative data and we've got quantitative data. So we layer those two to look at what it is that's being said about the brand. What is the current campaign performance? Where's there an opportunity to make the connection between always on and campaign content? Or do we have to do that? Or is there a moment where we can just really tap into a cultural moment, tap into a trend that really makes us visible in a space that doesn't necessarily live within the brand world, but could be brand adjacent, you know? So we've built a process where we've got a constant feedback loop in terms of how we're communicating with our audience and how our audience feels about us, the brand, and the campaign. And then we can implement continuous improvement as one layer at that level, but then we also find the opportunities there to have a conversation. So a complaint can really turn into a piece of content at the end of the day, because what we're trying to do is shift sentiment. We're trying to shift the narrative around the brand and then just ensure that we are getting the most out of what we can from that campaign, because we are running in multiple markets at the same time. You know, you kind of want to tailor that messaging for that audience in that market so that it feels like this is a great campaign, but this is a great campaign for me, you know, and that's where that level of connection comes in. And, you know, that's where you get that, you know, that brand love, you know, that love mark. That's what I like to call it, you know, that even when you're not participating, even when you're not on their feet, you're in their minds, and then they're thinking about, oh, this was a fun interaction, or I loved this brand so much that I wanted to put out user-generated content that they even, you know, that they responded to. So those are moments that, you know, you can tap into. It's one thing to get a view, but I do think when when all the things come together and they're playing well, you can really tap into an emotion. And those are the lasting effects that you have with the brand and the community that you're building. Because they become your advocates at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
They are in the rooms that you are not in. They're the ones sitting in there at the dinner table talking about, oh, I really love this product. Oh, have you tried this? You know, they are the people that are speaking about you even when you're not in the room.
And those are the conversions that you cannot track and cannot see, but maybe even more valuable. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I love so much about this, Chabi.
No, absolutely. And I mean, there are different ways to measure like your performance and like just to do attribution or tracking. And those are very important as well, because you always have to be testing and measuring to figure it out. You're not going to get it once right and exactly the same way over and over again. So you need to be willing to test, to measure, to, you know, and to improve. So it's a constant, you kind of have to have a, you know, agile architect mindset, in the sense that you always need to be willing to prime yourself for success, to adjust and to pivot and to move forward.
Speaking of attribution, Chabi, I might be putting you on the spot. So if this is a question that is like, just like, you know, you don't really want to chat about, like, that's totally fine. But you may have the answer to a problem that I'm currently facing. And that is tracking like any kind of traffic or like conversions from YouTube. Do you do much YouTube stuff at like VML for Coca-Cola?
Yes, we do. We do quite a bit of YouTube just from a campaign standpoint, but we also try to leverage it from a real-time content standpoint.
Yeah, like shorts.
I do find, shorts. Yeah, shorts are really great for us because they're, you know, very punchy, great ad units as well. But you're right. Like, I think for me, tracking conversion there is a bit tricky, but we do have a system where we use UTM links on our pages across. Yes, UTM track links, especially if we want to take people off the platform and into another landing page somewhere and you want them to complete an action. That isn't like tracking and measuring is very important for us in our world, because then, you know, when you think about the amount of campaigns that you run throughout the year, the budgets that are aligned to each of these campaigns, you want to make sure that everything that you do is yielding some sort of result, you know? So that's one way that we've been able to track it as well. But there are different systems and tools that we use, whether, you know, it is in-app tools that we use, or different, community management or reporting tools that we use to measure that. Because I think a lot of the times, like you do want to measure the soft metrics because they're indicative of something. They're a symptom of something. So if you have impressions increasing, it may not be that specific post that is helping your impressions. It might be something else. So if your reach is suddenly increasing somewhere, you kind of want to figure out what is that signaling, and and how do we better it, and how do we improve on that.
Yeah, YouTube is the platform I'm most focused on kind of in my work at the moment. And I've just kind of, now that I'm like, views and, impressions and all of this watch time, and like, that's wonderful. But they do feel, I mean, this is true of all social, right? They feel like vanity metrics. Like, but
absolutely.
Are they? It's a kind of what you've just said. Like, there are people having conversations about you in rooms you're not in, right? Because of this content that they've seen. So
absolutely. And you kind of want to set benchmarks for yourself, because I think, continuous improvement is absolutely key. Like if there's a sudden shift somewhere, whether good or bad, you kind of want to be able to, at least put together parameters for you to even start looking somewhere. So it is an interesting challenge. And I think maybe that's something that we need to get better at, because I do find like data and analytics is somewhat of a lost art with some, just within our industry, just based on the fact that like, I think it seems intimidating, you know what I mean? Like there's so many numbers to... Exactly. There's so many numbers to look at, so many different things that are coming up, like, and even all of these platforms as well keep changing the ways that they're measuring things. So it does get frustrating.
Right. Yes. I know. But every time I post something about Instagram, like we do so many like resources to help you do something, then Adam Mosseri, head of Instagram, pops up with a new reel telling me actually everything
and then
has
you're
changed.
Like, actually we've changed this and we're making it better, and you're like, no, I liked that other one. Absolutely.
I just told everyone it works a different way. Anyway, sorry, that was a little tangent for me. Yeah, attribution
no stress, but that's where I like to
social.
collaborate as well. No, absolutely. And I think that's where I like to collaborate. Like, who are the subject matter experts in this space? Like, what do I need to know? Like, what are your thoughts when it comes to this? And like, what's the difference between measuring it in this particular way or in that particular way? Like, are video views more important than impressions? Why? And in my world, why is that important? So you're absolutely right. Like, it does get, frustrating and intimidating, and always having to track the changes is a bit of a challenge. But I take that on as, as just part of the experience of being in social. Like, if you, just like how we were explaining like earlier on, like this industry started at right at the beginning of our careers, and it's changed incredibly. It's changed incredibly since then. And I think that's part of what keeps me interested as well. Like, the type of community management and the type of social media management I'm going to do today is not going to be the same as how we do it next year and how I've done it previously.
Next week, Chabi, it's going to change.
Next week, exactly.
Honestly, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I think if you love a challenge, there is no better marketing kind of arena to be in.
Absolutely. This is the space.
This is the place. Okay, Chabi, I've taken up so much of your time. We've spoken about marketing and platforms and industry trends. Coming back to kind of career and advice from you, what is one thing that you wish you had known earlier in your career that would have saved you time or stress or sleepless nights? What is that one thing you wish you knew?
That's such a good question. What would I tell younger chubs? Okay. I think one of the things I'll do is learn how to be a master collaborator as soon as you can. I think one of the things that I tried to do very earlier on is learn everything and try to like be self-reliant and self-sustaining, right? And that's primarily because like, when you work in small teams, like a lot of the responsibilities from, research to content creation to reporting really does sit with you. And from a generalist point of view, that's really, really great. But if you're trying to specialize and if you're trying to like find your niche corner of the market, being a specialist isn't restricting. I think it helps you refine yourself in a very real way. And I think being a collaborator helps you figure out where your strengths lie, where your interests lie, and it helps you reduce your learning curve as well. And it helps you solve for a problem or solve for X in a way that you probably wouldn't have looked at before, So as much as you're able to leverage your own skills, finding ways to leverage other people's skill sets and bringing them, into the same room, encouraging, people to speak up has served me really, really well in the way in the way that I've done in the way that I've grown in my career, because there's things that I've learned. There's, relationships that I've been able to build that have serviced me throughout my career that I wish I had the opportunity to have done sooner. Like if I had done that a lot earlier in my career, I think it would have reduced my learning curve a lot more. But it's like continuous improvement. Again, like I said, it's an ongoing thing. Like we're in an ever changing landscape, in a constant state of flux. So you really need to be willing and able to have other people who are experts in their field in the room to contribute to the bigger picture.
That's such a great piece of advice. I ask this question pretty much every recording and no one has ever said anything like that. And it's such a good point, because I think as marketers, especially when we're starting out, like we all want to be everything to everybody. And, it is kind of good to start with a generalist mindset. But I think when you find areas that you're super skilled in and you really love, like specialization isn't going to hamper your career in any way. It may actually, be the path for you.
Exactly.
But then also, and to your points about collaboration, I think some of the areas that I've specialized in have kind of come from these moments of collaboration where I've like learned something from an expert. I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool. Let's work together on this project. And now I can do, I don't know, SEO.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. SEO, maybe don't do SEO right now. That's not a fun world to exist in. Currently,
no, I fully hear you.
Yeah. I'm going to stop crying. No, it's fine. We're fine. Chabi, thank you so much. This was just so fascinating. I feel like I could have spoken to you for like another 3 hours. Can we just like have a follow-up where we
let's
just
do
like
a part
talk about
2
TikTok?
and a part 3. Yes, let's.
Yeah.
I'm fully down for that. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for all of the knowledge that you've shared. For anyone listening, if you would like to connect with marketers like Chabi or myself, we would love to have you in the SA Tech Marketers community. It's a space for sharing ideas, asking questions, and discovering exciting new opportunities. The link is in the show notes. Chabi, it has been a delight.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.